All right, so the best place to get cars is actually Sketchfab. So I'm just going to go to the Sketchfab. I'm going to go to sketchfab.com, and here I'm just going to go to the homepage. All right, so we can just search for cars and just search for car, and you're going to get a really good collection of cars. You can just click downloadable, and you're going to find a lot of cars. The variety here is absolutely insane, and Sketchfab is the website which I use to get pretty much all my cars from. You can also get like some artistic cars, some stylized cars. For example, this flying Mercedes, if that's what you want. You can also get a Porsche, whatever it's called. I think I'm gonna get a Porsche. Let's get one of those. So we are gonna need, I think, around 3 to 4 cars. I'm just gonna go with 3, just for the sake of this tutorial. And so let's look for something. Okay, so you can also download one of these. I think, but I think I just want a regular car, to be honest. So let me go up, and let's go back to Sketchfab. And then what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna go to Explore, Downloadable, and then in here I'm just gonna go into my categories. Into the categories, I'm gonna go in Cars and Vehicles. So here we can find some better ones, hopefully. So we can maybe download an SUV. I would actually want an SUV, to be honest, because those look more realistic oftentimes. So the few SUVs which I like are actually paid, so I'm gonna have to keep looking. So yeah, so I think this Range Rover is really nice, so we can download this. Don't worry about the textures. Even if it looks fake right now, we are gonna be modifying it. So this Porsche looks really good, so we can just get just download this, and we can also download this Range Rover. Let's see if you can find anything else. But I think honestly 2 cars should be enough as well, just for the sake of this tutorial. And if you're making an actual scene, then you would obviously want more cars. So we can download a Porsche, an old one. Let's go and look at our Range Rover. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, so I think it looks pretty good. Yeah, it looks pretty decent, and it is gonna look realistic, hopefully. I hope these are actual meshes and they're not some sort of yeah, so I think I'm gonna go with 2 cars, and then we can just search for cycle, and then we can just get a cycle, because texturing them is gonna look is gonna take some time. So I actually wanna keep this tutorial short. So you can just download something like this, or let me click downloadable so that it only shows us the downloadable assets. So I think something like that is really nice. Yeah, that is really realistic. So let's go with that. Okay, so this actually has 171,000 vertices, which I think is quite a ton. And even this has 1.5 million vertices. So I hope the size of this model is not too big. Yeah, I think it's fine. 48 MBs. So let's just download the FBX file format. Just download this. Let's download the Porsche. So this comes in the blend file format, which is fine. We're going to be using Blender to convert this. Even if you don't know how to use Blender, I am going to be showing you. Right, so in this we can just download the OBJ format. So I'm just going to wait for these to download, and then I will see when they're done. Now we are going to need Blender for this, so you can just go ahead and download that as well. But even if you don't know how to use Blender, that's perfectly fine. Just go ahead, download this, and then just follow the setup. It's pretty simple. Just keep clicking next, and it's just going to download it. Right, so I will see when these assets have been downloaded, and then we're just going to go ahead and add them to our scene. Alright, so the assets have been downloaded now, and I'm just going to be going ahead and opening Blender. Now you can obviously open the FBX file formats directly inside of Unreal Engine 5. However, I just usually like to open things in Blender first, and just make sure that they're all the normals are right and everything just works fine, the materials and everything, just before we import them in Unreal Engine 5. So I'm just going to be opening Blender, and so I'm just going to be deleting everything. Now, even if you don't know how to use Blender, it's very, very simple. I'm just going to be showing you the basics that you do need to know. However, it is generally recommended to learn at least one 3D software before starting to learn Unreal Engine. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to File, and we're going to be importing an FBX file first. So let's just select FBX. And actually, I'm going to select I think it was this one, the FBX one. I think it was yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to be selecting this and I'm going to be dragging this on my desktop. Let's actually open the zip file and let's copy these folders into my desktop. Let's extract them. So I'm just going to be creating a new folder. I'm going to call it Range Rover. Ignore the mess and on my desktop. I do plan on cleaning everything up hopefully soon. But yeah, for now, just bear with me. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is that we're going to go back to Blender. And since we are in the FBX open mode, I'm just going to go to desktop. Let's go to the, what do you call it? Range Rover folder. Let's go to source and then FBX file. Just open this, import. And now you're going to see, hopefully, that we are going to see a Range Rover in our scene. So it is taking longer than usual, but yeah, it's done. Okay, so the car is looking pretty nice. Yeah, the materials and everything is working fine. The car comes in separate meshes, separate objects, right? So that is always good. And yeah, I think everything seems to be good. One thing which I am going to do is that I'm just going to click right here, and then I'm going to go down to face orientation and make sure that everything is blue. Also, if you don't know how to orbit objects, you can just simply click the middle mouse button on your keyboard and then you can just orbit around the object. Yeah, or if you're on a laptop or if you don't have a middle mouse button, then you can just go to edit, preferences, go to input, and then click emulate 3 mouse button. Now you can just hold click and hold alt on your keyboard and then just use your left mouse button to move around your object, right? So once we're done, so we can just go ahead and export this as an FBX. However, since we didn't really make any sort of changes, we don't really need to do this again. We can just directly use the FBX which came with that, right? So I'm just going to be importing that FBX in Unreal Engine 5 now. So we can just go to Unreal Engine 5, enter the content browser, right click the content folder, and then I'm going to be creating a new folder. I'm just going to call this range_rover. And then we can just drag that FBX file in, go to this folder, source, and then this file right here. Just drag it in the content browser and it's going to automatically import. Make sure that skeletal mesh is not checked. Otherwise, it's going to sort of mess up things. It can mess up things. Yeah, so while this is importing, what we can do is we can go ahead and import the other models as well, right? So the other ones are obviously not FBXs, so we're going to have to process them through Blender. So I'm just going to be copying this and I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it Porsche. I hope I spelled it right. And we're just going to drag the folders from this folder, Porsche folder, into our new Porsche folder. I hope that makes sense. Okay. However, it shouldn't be like that. Anyways, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be opening the source file in Blender now. So I'm going to be selecting everything and I'm going to be deleting it. Okay, never mind. We're not supposed to do it like that. We're supposed to right click the collection, select objects, and then delete everything, because previously we weren't really deleting everything. We were just deleting the parent objects. Right, so I'm going to go to File, Import, FBX, and let's go back into the Porsche folder. So the Porsche folder is right here. Go to Source, and actually, never mind. This is not an FBX file, is it? It's a blend file. So blend files are very easy to open. We can just directly click them and they're going to open inside of Blender directly. So yeah, we don't really need to do that. Anyway, so now you're going to see that we have our Porsche. It's perfectly fine. It looks pretty good to me. We can just go ahead and, okay, so basically the whole layout is very bad. It's like different. So we can just go ahead and click face orientation, make sure that everything is blue. We're going to get rid of this ground because we don't really need that. Everything else seems to be fine. We're going to texture this inside Unreal Engine. However, we can just go to File, Export, and export as an FBX. Click that. We can just export it right here. I'm just going to call this Porsche.fbx, export FBX, and now we can just go back to Unreal Engine, and you're going to see that we also have our Range Rover imported. So let me just place that in our scene first. So the way we place cars in our scene is that you're going to see that they actually come as individual pieces, right? But we can just select the first object. We can scroll down, make sure to not click anywhere because our first object is still selected. And then we can just shift click the last object to select all of them, right? And then we can just click any one of them and just drag them in our scene, something like that. And it's just going to come in our scene like that. As simple as that. And So I think the scale of this is a little small, so I might have to scale this up a little bit, something like that. I think that makes more sense, hopefully. We can rotate it like that, 90 degrees, and then we can place it somewhere there. Right, so I think our Porsche is in our Range Rover is in our scene. I'm gonna press Ctrl Z to make sure that everything is selected, and with all this selected, I'm gonna click this button right here to actually put this inside a collection. I'm just gonna call this Range_Rover. It is very important to put these things in your collection, in a separate collection, because when we want to move a car, then we won't have to individually select all the objects, which is honestly a nightmare. So what I'm gonna do is that now I'm gonna create another folder. Right click the content folder, create another folder, call this Porsche, and now we can just go ahead and import the Porsche. So let's go back to our Porsche source folder. Let's select the FBX, drag this inside Unreal Engine 5, make sure skeletal mesh is turned off, and then import all. And while this is happening, we can also go ahead and import the cycle, right? So the cycle, I think it was, yeah, it's okay, it's a separate zip file. It is basically an OBJ file, right? It's an object file. So we can just select this, copy this, and then we can create a new folder, just call this bicycle, and then paste it inside here. Perfect. And now we can just go ahead and open this in Blender. So we can just open Blender again, go to File, Import, and this time we're not going to do FBX because we are wanting to import an OBJ file. So wavefront in brackets OBJ. Just open that, click that, just go to the desktop or wherever you have that saved. And I think it was somewhere up there. Yeah, right here, bicycle. Click this and just import the OBJ file and just wait for it to complete. And for some reason, we're not seeing the bicycle. Okay, never mind. The bicycle is actually really, really large. So this is why importing things in Blender is easier. So we can just scale things properly. I think something like that should be a good scale, even less maybe. I think something like that should be good. We can obviously tweak it later on. Also, I was pressing S to scale it. By the way, you can just press S and move your mouse to scale things in Blender. So I think we need to scale it down even more. I think something like that should be good. Perfect. So now we can just click this thing right here and face orientation, make sure everything is good. My bad. And make sure everything is fine, which it is. So I'm just going to go to File, Export, and export as FBX. I'm going to be exporting it in the same bicycle folder. Call it bike this time, because why not? And let's go back to Unreal Engine. So our Porsche has also been imported. So I'm just going to be selecting the first object, shift select the last one, and drag it in your scene. Okay, so for some reason our Porsche is not importing correctly. It has these it has a tire for some reason. So we're just going to be importing this, and then we can just go ahead and delete the tires and stuff like that. But before that, I'm going to be moving this in a new collection, because so that it's later on when we position this property, it's easier. So just select the tire, delete it, select this cube, delete it, oh sorry, the sphere, and select this engine. I think it wasn't the engine, I think it was the brakes or something like that. Move it up, place it right there, and now we can just go ahead and scale it down. I think something like that should be a good scale, or maybe even lower, because obviously a Porsche is smaller than a Range Rover, right? So let me just rotate it like that. Let's make sure that it looks correct in scale compared to the Range Rover. Now, if you were making a proper scene, if you were making like a paid project or something like that, then you would obviously want to check the actual scales of the cars and use actual dimensions. However, I think right now this seems to be the correct scale, because the Porsche is relatively smaller. So, but we can just go ahead and scale it up slightly. Now let's move the, actually let me select the whole Porsche folder, select all descendants, my bad. And so this Porsche, I'm just going to be placing this behind the Range Rover. So we're going to have, so I think it's going to look good then. So we're going to move ahead, and then we're going to be panning over to this Porsche, right? I think that's going to look good. So just save everything, click save all, and then this is going to take some time because it's going to save all the assets. But yeah, while this is happening, we can make sure that our cycle has been exported, which it is. Perfect. Let's go back to Unreal Engine 5. And now we can just go ahead and close Blender, by the way. Don't save. And let's wait for this to complete, and then we will add the bicycle. Right, so now we can just go ahead and import the bicycle. So I'm just going to go to the content folder, right click it, new folder, bicycle. Let's go back to the folder. So let me just close all these other folders because they are confusing us. Now we can just go to the desktop, open the bicycle folder, and here we have the bicycle FBX. So I'm just going to be importing this in Unreal Engine 5. So once this is imported, we can just bring this in the scene, and then we can start texturing the cars and the bike. So we can just import this, and it's still very large. So I'm just going to have to scale it down. Oops, my bad. Scale it down. Something like that, I think, should be a good scale. So basically, the height of a bicycle is around the same as the height of a car. However, it is obviously physically smaller. I think that is the correct size. No, I think it should be a little larger. I think something like that is better. Perfect. So let me just go ahead and place this properly. So I think I'm going to place it somewhere right there. I would actually recommend you to place your bike in a place where there is sunlight, because then it's going to look a little more realistic. In my previous scene, was when I was sort of experimenting a little bit, I actually tried placing it in some shade and in sunlight as well, and I think sunlight looks better. So we can just tilt this slightly, and then we can bring it closer to the wall, something like that. Make sure it doesn't intersect. Rotate it a little more. I think something like that is good. Yeah, I think it looks pretty realistic. So you can obviously add more things as well. You can add a lot more things. There's a lot more room to play with. But I think for now we're good. So we can now we can just go ahead and start texturing the stuff.